One day, my husband brought home an old round table that most people would probably throw away. But the moment I saw it, I imagined something completely different. I wanted to give this table a second life and turn it into something beautiful and unique using my favorite material, epoxy resin. So I decided to transform this forgotten table into a modern piece with character and a completely new story. The first step was sanding the table and removing all the roughness and imperfections. I also partially removed the old paint from the surface to prepare it for the next stage. The next step was fully disassembling the table and removing all the parts so I could remove the old paint and imperfections from each piece as well. The next step was priming and painting the table in a deep black color. After painting the tabletop black and letting the paint fully dry, I sanded the surface again to prepare it for the epoxy resin. This step is important because it creates better adhesion between the tabletop and the epoxy. before pouring the epoxy resin onto the tabletop. I needed to seal the back side of the table to prevent the resin from leaking underneath. For this, I used painter's tape. The next step was measuring the epoxy resin. At this stage, proportions are very important. My epoxy resin uses a 1-to-1 mixing ratio. It's also important to mix the resin slowly and thoroughly to avoid bubbles and uncured spots. I also added black pigment to the resin, since black was the main color of my tabletop design. This helped create a deeper and richer finish. I created this design completely from my imagination, without sketches or references. This was my very first project of this scale that I decided to make for myself by hand. I wanted the table to look deep, dramatic, and elegant at the same time. In the end, this abstract design is what I created. I don't think it's absolutely perfect, but for my first experience, I'm honestly very proud of the result. The main color of the tabletop was a deep black, which created the base of the entire design. To add contrast and movement, I also used white and gold pigments with a subtle shimmer effect. I decided to add gold flakes as well to give the design a more unique and artistic touch. I think these details made the abstract pattern look deeper, richer, and more alive. Since I had protected the backside of the tabletop with painter's tape, it was much easier to remove everything afterward. Using a heat gun and a utility knife, I carefully heated the resin and removed the tape along with the excess epoxy from the edges. After that, I lightly sanded the surface again, removed any remaining resin imperfections, cleaned off the dust, and wiped everything down with a damp cloth. This prepared the tabletop for the next stage, refining the final details and painting the backside of the table with the same deep black color. And finally, it was time for the last step, assembling the table. Seeing all the separate pieces finally come together was one of the most satisfying moments of the entire process. This project took a lot of time, patience, and trial and error, but seeing the final result made it all worth it. From an old table to a completely new piece, created by hand, this transformation became something really special for me. What started as an old table turned into one of the biggest handmade projects I've ever created for myself. Seeing it finally standing in my kitchen, surrounded by candles, flowers, and warm light, made the entire process feel worth it. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this transformation as much as I enjoyed creating it. And I'd really appreciate your support by subscribing to my channel.